If you take your food personally, like me, then you need to get on the Thrive food discovery and ordering app. Join the community of foodies on the Thrive feed, where you can curate restaurant lists, ask for recos, and chat about all things food. So download it today and start thriving. Welcome to today's episode of Speak Greasy. My guest is Chef Shriya Shetty, who is also known as the Ghee-Roast Queen. As much as she's known for her incredible cooking, she's also known for her very bad jokes on Instagram, on her handle called Shriya Shetty. So you've got to follow her to get your humor for the day. Welcome to the show, Shriya.
Thank you so much.
And welcome back to Mac Street Kitchen.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
I know, not cooking yet. So listen, let's get right into it. Of course, you're known for your Mangalorean food, and we've all been big fans of it, big suckers of like everything that you cook. And you actually did a dinner here. It was our first guest chef event post-COVID. So you finally broke that spell and cooked here for us, and it was delicious. It makes sense that you do Mangalorean food because that's, you've grown up eating that. How did the bakery happen?
Actually, the Mangalorean thing was a very sudden change in my career path. So when I started off with I'm a BCom graduate first of all, and I started working in restaurants. I know, similar background. So I started working at restaurants as soon as my graduation got done because I was very keen on to enter this field. And
that's why you did a BCom.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I did BCom. So I could choose and change my career whenever I wanted to. And so when I joined Ellipsis in Colaba, there's this restaurant which is now shut down. The first thing that they put me in was into the bakery department, which is a very common thing that happens to you when you join a kitchen, is you're first put into bakery as an intern, and then you sort of find your way through. And I thought I was interested in baking because before that also all I had done was bake cakes at home. So started off like that, did the hot kitchen, went to Gagan to do my stage, was there for about 5 months, came back, realized I need to do something with Mangalorean food, moved to Mangalore. And when I was in Mangalore, I realized that I need to do research on our cuisine. But I also realized I need to earn money while I do research because nobody was paying me to do research. And my bakery background just came in handy. And so Varun and I decided that let's set up a small bakery while we do our research. And that bakery took off while the research was about to take off. So like everything's gone topsy-turvy, but we are finding our way through.
Well, I think topsy-turvy is a second name for this business. But what did how did that shape you? And how did it influence your sort of cooking that you do now, if at all?
So I think Ellipsis has a very big influence in the way I cook right now because Chef Kelvin always believed in a very freestyle way of cooking. So ingredients would come into the kitchen and then we would decide what we are making out of it. And we could take inspiration from anything and everything. It was not very cuisine driven. So my style of cooking also became very check out the ingredient first, then decide what can be made out of it, what will taste really good with and stuff like that. So when I was there, I did that, moved from bakery to hot kitchen, was into breads as well. I literally did everything. And you saying that I got the opportunity to work at a restaurant without the F&B background, that is a great thing, yes. But I also sort of wrote 15 emails to chef, just begging him to take me in as anything. I was like, I'll wash the dishes if you want, but just give me a chance to sort of work at your place. And like now when I think about it, I was like, yeah, it was free labor, right? So why not? Why say no?
Would you give someone an opportunity?
If someone, writes to me like that, I would. Because I have come up that way. So I have sort of realized that for me, practical training worked way more than like going and doing, getting sort of an educational degree in the same field.
Which you had the opportunity to do, I believe, and you even were getting a scholarship to do that. And so tell us about, what that sort of decision, how that decision was made.
So when I was at Ellipsis, obviously being exposed to this cuisine with Italian food. We used to make our own pastas, we used to make our own breads. I really thought that Italian food was what I was gravitating towards. So I really genuinely wanted to become an Italian chef. And that's how I applied to ICC in the US, and I applied for a scholarship there. They had this really lovely 9-month Italian cooking course where 6 months you were, I think 3 months you were in New York and 6 months you were in Italy doing your stage and learning at restaurants and stuff like that. And I was like, yes, that's exactly what I want to do with my life. And that's how I applied for the scholarship. I got the scholarship. At the same time, coincidentally, I had also applied to a lot of different restaurants around the world. And like you said, a lot of rejections came through because of me not having a degree. And being this really, energized, stubborn, 21-year-old, I wrote to them saying, how can you all judge a person by their degree, blah, blah, blah. I wrote these long emails. And then I still remember the response I got from Noma, the guy saying, dear Shriya, please understand that you won't get a visa if you don't have a degree. That's the reason we can't say yes to you. It's not because of your skill set or anything.
You're probably the only chef who hasn't worked at Noma, who has just asked at Noma, by the way.
And I was like, okay, I said that makes sense. Then I was like, okay, now sorry for all the angry emails. I completely understand what you're trying to say and, why you can't really give me the opportunity and stuff like that. So, but at the same time, I had sent the same mail to Chef Gagan as well. And I got the response from there. And that time I was at the crossroads saying that, do I go for my education or do I go to Gagan? And I think for me, my own history had indicated that practical knowledge always triumphed, going to school and sort of studying and getting. So I was like, I will have to work somewhere to absorb all the knowledge I learned in school. So I might as well just continue working at a place. And that's how I ended up going to Bangalore.
And that's interesting because it's actually moving away from that Italian cuisine.
Yes.
But I guess it was about getting the work experience and the discipline of working in a kitchen.
Yeah.
And also it was a very different format from what you were doing at Ellipsis, which is it wasn't as freestyle, it was a tasting menu. How was that experience different from what you'd done here?
So I genuinely moved because as a young cook, obviously that whole idea of wanting to work in the bigger restaurants in the world, and back then Gagan was top of the list. They're back to being top of the list now, but even then it was, I think, the 5th best or something like that in the world. And I was like, let me go and check it out. Let me go and see what it is. I knew for a fact that I wanted to spend enough time to sort of figure out what I wanted to do rather than be like, nay, I'm just going to do this and just follow that path. All I knew was I wanted to be in the kitchen. That was like my base. There's nothing else I will do but cook. But what I want to cook, I still needed to sort of figure out. So I went there because progressive Indian cuisine, I was like, let me understand and see how that works, how fine dining menus work and stuff like that. There were not too many restaurants back then. In India, though, I don't think we had, barring a few. And so I was like, I've got this opportunity, I might as well. And honestly speaking, I was like, ek ne mere ko haan bola hai, I'm going to take it up.
Before he changes his mind.
Degree मांग रहे हैं, and I cannot go with my BCom degree and stuff. So if this person has said, yes, let me just sort of go there and give it a shot and see how I like.
Yeah.
So that, like you said, it was very different from what we were cooking. There you followed a singular path. So whatever the menu was for that period of time, you sort of did that itself, and it was a very repeated menu as well. It was very interesting to see the kind of food the world was eating and the kind of representation Indian food had, in the world as well. And even there, it was more technical and stuff like that because I was a stage, right? It's not like they gave me the responsibility of the kitchen. I used to just help out with whatever was needed. But while I was there, one day I was missing home and I was like, let me make dal. And my dal was undercooked. It was uncooked by the end of it. And I was embarrassed. Luckily, nobody was there. I was alone. I was just embarrassed. I was like, Shriya, you can't cook dal. You can make pasta with your eyes closed. You can make bread with your eyes closed. You can't make dal. This is like ridiculous. You really need to sort of figure your way out around this thing. And at that point, I think when I was in the kitchen, there were around 20 nationalities working in the kitchen itself. And the one thing I really took back from the place was the fact that whenever it came to flavors, they were only the Indian chefs that could bring in the flavor of the food. So technically and the technicalities, everybody could sort of figure their way out. But for the marinations and for all of the base flavors, the Indian cooks who've been with him for a very long time sort of did it. And at that point, I realized, I was like, no matter how much Italian food I learn and I practice and I cook, I did not grow up eating that food. I will not have that nostalgic memory to sort of add and all of that.
It's not innate to you.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
So at that point, I had a realization that the only thing I can be the best at is the food I grew up eating. And I did not grow up eating Italian khana. I grew up eating Indian food. And I was like, so I might as well give it a shot at some point, because at that point also I didn't know. I was like, at some point I need to get back to Indian food and Indian cooking and give sort of that time. So yeah, that's how slowly my mind started moving towards needing to move to India and then to Mangalore at some point to sort of figure things out.
So you mentioned Varun, your husband, who also assists you in the kitchen and helps you with your business.
My assistant chef.
Yeah, basically you boss him around in the kitchen. But, it's one thing to sort of decide to move back to India, and the obvious thing rather would have been to move back home to Bombay, but you then decided to move to Mangalore. Very bold or very mad, you tell us.
So the funny thing is that a lot of people know Varun as my husband now, but we've been working together ever since I moved back.
So you've been bossing him around.
I've been bossing him around for years. And he's very nicely stands in the shadows, but then I get yelled at on our way back. I like, chill, no problem.
We should exchange notes on this offline.
So I think when I moved back, I remember, and back then Varun and I were just dating. So we used to just have these conversations. I'm like, listen, yeah, at some point I want to move to Mangalore. And he was brought up in Mangalore. And I was like, but Mangalore inside out. At some point I need to move there and sort of figure out whether this is genuinely what I want to do, right? Because it's very cool to say that, oh, I'm going to move back to my roots. But if you're not genuinely interested and you genuinely don't like it, you're not going to enjoy the entire process. And that whole thing is going to be super tough. So I just kept having this conversation. I'm like, maybe 10 years down the line, I'll move to Mangalore. And, we'll be there, we'll see, we'll figure out, we'll do our research and setup and everything. And we were like, okay. I think 2 or 3 months after I came back, Varun one day just gives me a call. He's like, listen, there's this small business opportunity in Mangalore. And he's like, it is to take up the management of a North Indian restaurant. And I was like, North Indian restaurant? What am I supposed to do? He's like, no, let's take it up. Let's see. And I was like, are you crazy? I don't even know how to work a tandoor. He's like, no, take it up as management. Because at that point, I also had a little bit of a knee issue, which was not allowing me to I had to take a 3-month break, basically. And he's like, let's see it. And I had to poke and I was like, why are you really telling? He's like, because you've been talking about moving to Mangalore. Come for 3 months. You are from Bombay. See if you genuinely like the city, because it's a very small city. So I was like, oh, couldn't you tell me this first? So he was like, come here and let's do this project. We'll figure it out and see. And then you take a call on whenever you want to sort of come back or not come back or whatever. And let's decide it that way. So I moved. I went for the 3-month stint. That project did not materialize into anything. But in the 3 months, Varun had shown me so much more of Mangalore than I ever thought existed. Because being a Shetty from Bombay, I only went there every summer vacation. But every summer vacation was family homes, 2-3 restaurants that were famous that we knew of, and back. I absolutely had no idea about the different communities that lived there. I had no clue about anything. And I was like, listen, I think 10 years down the line if I move, because I would have worked so hard in the 10 years to sort of climb up the ladder, and then to leave that and come back to my roots might be a little tough. What if we do it right now? And he was like, okay, I'll do it with you. And I was like, are you serious? Like, is this really like something that you want to do as well? And he's like, yeah, let's do it. We'll sort of figure our way around it. We will set up something here and figure out the research bit and all of that. And it was easier for me because Varun sort of is a people's person. And the thing that I've realized is when you're doing research, you need to know how to talk about regular stuff. And you can't just go that, hey, can you tell me how Kori roti is made? No. You go, you talk to them, you sort of just understand about their life. And that's how you get your notes about things. So, yeah, I think he decided to switch careers for me, which is maybe was a sign that, oh, I should marry him at some point.
Wow. Oh, and you weren't even married at this point. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I bet all the girls listening to this are going to be like, can we find some Varuns out there?
So coming back to your question, when I moved, obviously my mom's only condition was find a way to earn money. And, because I know that, there was no restaurant I could work in Mangalore. And I was like, I would have to do something of my own. And so she's like, you either start earning or come back. She gave me I think she had given me a 4-month timeline. And I was like, fair enough. Let me figure out what I want to do. And that's when Varun and I were like, what do we do?
Time's running out.
And then both of us were like, what do we do? And at that point, we were like, opening a restaurant doesn't make sense in Mangalore right now because the market was not that open and my kind of food wouldn't be accepted. But we saw a gap in the market for a good bakery. We saw a gap in the market for good desserts, good breads. Mangalore breads were very different to what we eat here. And I was like, let's do this. I was like, let's put my bakery training into this thing and into action and sort of set up a small bakery setup that does, and we'll do cooking classes and all of that as well. Probably a 10% version of Mag Street is what we opened. So we took up an old house. We made one part into the kitchen, one part into a cooking studio, and that became Pumpkin's Kitchen, which is now known as BuCo.
Yeah.
So, that's how we just started. But a lot of people for a very long time kept telling me that my decision was really stupid. A lot of people who spoke to my mom thought I did it for love, which was really stupid. And they were like, why is this girl just leaving everything and moving to a small city? And, the career that she can have when she's in Bombay or goes abroad is much more. She's got so many more opportunities and she's just leaving everything and going to...
I hope you made them eat their words now.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Proud about it.
That's amazing. So let's talk a little bit now about the actual Mangalorean food. Tell me about it. How is it different for a layman like me? How is it actually different from the rest of Karnataka? How would you sort of describe this food?
So first of all, I think when you talk about Karnataka cuisine, a lot of people only refer to Mangalorean food, which is the kori roti, gassi, chicken sukka, ghee-roast, neer dosas that you hear of. Now, Karnataka itself as a state is divided into 3 geographical terrains. So there's Karavali, which is the coastline. Then there's Malenadu, which are the mountains where you have Coorg, Chikmagalur and all of that. And then there's the Bailusime, which is the plateau and the plain. That's the North Karnataka, which is grossly underrated. Like, absolutely nobody knows about it. So I think just as with any region's cuisine, when you talk about the state, there's a lot more micro cuisines going on apart from what we already know of. Now, even when you come to Mangalorean food, I think the bunt cuisine is more prominent, especially in a city like Bombay, because we have a lot of bunts who've opened restaurants. Bunts are Shetty.
And then there's the
Catholic. Yeah. So you've got the Catholic community, you've got the Muslim community, you've got the fishermen community, so you've got the Mogaviras as well. So they all have their own unique cuisines. You've got the Brahmins, you've got the Jains. So it's just insanely
vast.
Yeah, vast. The cuisine within Mangalore also. So, and as you move from Mangalore up north towards the coast also, depending on ingredients, you will sort of see different dishes and cuisines and stuff like that. So, I think ingredient wise, yes. You may find similar ingredients in Kerala and Mangalore, but you will be surprised, as were we, when we did our pop-up in Kochi. We've done a couple of them now, that people had no familiarity with the food that we cooked, and they were like, these are not the flavors we are used to, even though we cooked with coconut and chilies and pepper and everything that you generally would find even in Kerala food. So I think it's the techniques, sort of that differ from place to place, and the way you use the ingredient as well. Because even though coconut is vastly used across the south, it's used in very different ways. So when you talk about cuisine, like that's what I have started talking about now, is the fact that even the regions within the state are so different. You may know probably a pandi curry, you may know a pork buffet, but you won't know the hingana, which is basically a savory coconut milk curry that is made by just adding tadka to freshly pressed coconut milk. And it's like these similar and these simple dishes that generally go unnoticed, but they are so delicious. And also the fact that they are super seasonal. So by the time I think a commercial restaurant could talk about it, that the ingredient would go out of season. But I think we are moving to a path where restaurants are taking more charge into sourcing local ingredients and stuff like that. So we sort of take the ingredients of the entire state as our base plate, and then we sort of talk about it and create dishes around it.
So how did you identify what you want, like how to start researching? Was it basically from your own communities was the starting point, and then the food that you were familiar with?
So I think when I started off, it was just shamelessly asking people to invite me home for lunch or dinner or breakfast. Early on, we realized that whenever we spoke, so if I went to a person and I was like, I'm a chef, I'm doing research, can you tell me? They all froze. And they were like, what do you want? They're like, nothing more than what we cook. But the minute you just ask them, like, what do you eat for breakfast and what do you have for lunch in general, you will hear about things that even you've not heard about, and then you sort of choose your questions according to that. So a lot of times, and I think most of my research has just been based by barging into people's houses. Invited, of course, but forcefully invited. I used to be like, can you invite me home? I just want to watch your mother cook this panna up curry, for example, So, and then like, yeah, of course, please come. And at that point, all we did was we used to just go in as helpers. So we're like, don't cook before we come. That's all we ask you. And we will help you with whatever you need. Don't like go to make anything fancy or anything. Just whatever you're cooking, keep it as simple as that. So that sort of made us understand the daily food rituals of people's homes and how they eat and stuff like that. And now, of course, with Instagram and with people getting to know more about our work, now it's a little easier for us to sort of barge into other people's houses. But when we started, that was basically just how we went about. So I had this little book that I would just carry because I didn't want people to be intimidated even by me carrying a big notebook and writing down. So this small book that sort of went into my pocket, and just from time to time I would take out and write down notes and just keep asking questions. So it was basically me going home and being part of cooking the food, and just helping them out in cooking the food is how we sort of figured out a lot of different techniques and ideas.
Amazing. What would you feed someone who was eating Mangalorean food for the first time?
Kori roti and chicken sukka for sure.
What? Ghee-Roast? You're giving yourself a bad name.
Yeah. See, that's exactly what happened. So the minute I put anything, somebody will tell me, why aren't you doing the Ghee-Roast? And the Ghee-Roast definitely goes on the menu.
That's now, that's the unspoken.
Yeah. So I'm like, but if you ask me, I grew up eating kori roti and chicken sukka, and that is what Mangalorean home cooking is about. Ghee-Roast, in fact, is a restaurant dish. So it's not part of the traditional cuisine. It is something that was created at this restaurant in Mangalore about 70 years ago. And it's become super famous. So it seems like it is a part of our old cuisine. And it's not. But it's delicious. So nobody complains. Nobody's complaining. We took 2 years to figure out the recipe. we put on a lot of weight, eating a lot of Ghee-Roast to just figure out how to make the Ghee-Roast right.
So, I've read about you sort of getting into the business, obviously, of running a bakery, and, you travel around with your, doing your pop-ups as well. You've talked about this assumption that's there, or maybe it's a misconception about women in the kitchen. Is that something, why don't you set the record straight for us? Is it actually different? I'm not someone who's in the kitchen, so I'm genuinely asking you, is it different for women in the kitchen, or, is it a mindset?
I think when I started off, it definitely was. Because like I said, the minute I joined any kitchen, I was thrown into the bakery section. Because the bakery pastry section is a more, how do I put it? It's not simpler, but it's a much more...
less hectic?
It's a little less hectic, yes, because you have everything on schedule. It's not, you're not standing in front of the fire the entire time and sort of working. So you can sort of manage your time when you're working in a bakery. And when I joined Ellipsis, I was put into the bakery section. For me to move out of bakery and into hot kitchen, I had to literally, again, force myself into it, because I would sort of finish my duty in the morning. I used to do an early morning shift. And when my bakery duty would end, I would do an extra shift just to work in the hot kitchen. And at that point, yes, there were a lot of taunts saying that, yaar, nahi ho paega tumse, nahi ho paega, because you're chopping, you're working with, huge vegetable crates and all of that. And like just a lot of manual work that goes into working in a hot kitchen. And they're like, nahi ho paega. And then when I did the switch and when I actually moved, they're like, oh, it's just you who's broken that path. And I was like, nahi yaar, you encourage people, they will do it as well. I mean, whoever's interested in pastry, well and good, but people are interested in hot kitchen, even they will sort of enjoy it. So the mindset slowly was changing at that point. You didn't see a lot of female chefs in the hot kitchen. So I didn't have any big idols to look at and be like, arey, unhone bhi kiya hai, so why can't I? I remember during my first pop-up in Bombay, and it was at Bombay Vintage. And
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, it was like this month-long Shetty pop-up. I still remember that somebody had called the restaurant a day or two before we started the festival, asking who is this chef cooking Mangalorean food. And when they, explained my name, and they're like, first of all, she's a girl. And I was like, hey? I was like, mujhe kyun nahi phone diya? He's like, because chef, aap baat karte to koi aayega nahi restaurant mein. They're like, we've learned the hard way that never give chef. Yeah, they're like, don't give chefs to talk to guests ever. Because when you all get angry, you all will just blast and you guys are going to lose our business. I said, good point. And so he's like, first of all, how is she making? Is she going to make food exactly like how my grandmother makes? He's like, you need to come and eat it first. He's like, but who are these professional chefs? We too don't have, women working in our professional kitchens here and this and that. And I don't know whether he ever turned up or what, whether he came, just tell you, yeah, didn't give his actual name, or he actually did not turn up. But I had a personal interaction with another guest who came to eat the food and loved it. And this couple had come, and then the guy was asking me questions about, what I'm doing and everything. And he's like, okay, that's really nice. And then he asked me, he's like, are you married? And I was like, no. I was 23, 24 back then. I was like, no. He's like, oh, no wonder you can do this now. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, no, after you get married, how are you going to manage doing all these? These are very hectic jobs. Like, the work hours are very erratic. And I was like, I was really taken aback. And I feel like it's like I can type in anger that what my answer would be. But back then, I was just taken aback. And I was like, this well-educated guy from South Bombay is asking me that, oh, you're doing this only because you're not married. Once you're married, you'll have to figure another career path that sort of allows you to And I was like, I'll find a boy who is chill with all of this. But no, all jokes apart, it's always, I mean, I did have my fair share of people sort of doubting me. Fair share of people saying, Arey, continue in the bakery because then you can open your own bakery and it'll be easier when you have a family to run a bakery. And I was like, no, I have a bakery now, but it's a different situation completely. So I did feel there was a lot of differentiation. It is still there now, but it has definitely changed for the better.
The differentiation was more because of the way people viewed having sort of female cooks in the kitchen. But did you feel at a disadvantage for anything that you were able to do?
Not really. And I think, Gauri, I have this one thing when people doubt me, and it's the biggest mistake they can make.
Yeah.
Sometimes I tell people, I'm like, show confidence. Maybe then I may not perform, but if you doubt me, I will literally do whatever it takes to prove you wrong at that point. So, and I really don't feel there is any disadvantage, because if you want to do it, even a guy won't survive in a hot kitchen if he does not have the grit and the determination, just the way a girl won't survive. It's the same. People who can't survive, can't survive.
So it comes down to attitude, mindset, and just pushing yourself.
Exactly.
Regardless of gender, basically.
So if you watch MasterChef and you've come into a kitchen, you will not survive for anything, because you come with the whole mindset that very glamorous, let's make new dishes every day. No, it's all about repetition. You're going to be chopping the same onions for the rest of your career if need be, because that is exactly what we do. We just keep repeating things until we get better at it. So if you don't like that, and if you don't like cleaning the kitchen 100 times a day, you're not going to survive.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's really important for people to hear, because I do believe that a lot of young sort of budding chefs, restaurateurs, etc., are listening, and I think that's really important to hear. But you said that it's changed. How are you seeing that? I mean, I know for one, there are, at least compared to 13 years ago when I sort of got into this business, there are a lot more women restaurateurs for sure who are taking that the risk of starting a business in this very sort of risky industry. But in terms of the kitchen, how are you seeing that? Are you seeing more chefs?
In the larger cities, yes. In the smaller cities, there's still some time. I think in Bombay, you definitely are seeing a lot of change. All across the globe, you are seeing a lot of change. Maybe a few pockets here and there that still have that mindset of not. There have been a lot of kitchens where people have not listened to me because I'm a girl. So, if I go for a pop-up, if I go for a pop-up, they will not take me seriously until I have to force my authority on them. I'm like, just get this done. Otherwise, get out. Let me do it on my own, but don't stand here doing nothing. So I see that little, and that's when they tell me, they're like, we're very sorry to tell you, but they have this attitude. We won't take instructions from a woman and stuff like that.
I think the takeaway for me from what you're saying is that you really have to stand your ground. And that's the key thing, where a lot of people maybe don't, because we tend to avoid confrontation. But I think that's where it comes from, that you do have to fight that a little bit harder, and it's worth the fight.
Yeah.
Yeah. You run a business, obviously, with the bakery, and, you go and do your pop-ups. What would you say are some of your biggest challenges outside of the kitchen, when it comes to the business of anything F&B?
I think I'm a horrible businesswoman, I'll tell you very frankly. I remember every time I think about me as running a business, thinking of, making money, profits and all of that, I remember this one thing that my chef had told me. So once I was making a salad when I was back in Bombay working, and I was very generous with everything. And chef just looked at me and he's like, guest will be very happy, but we are going to lose a lot of money if you send all your salads out like this. I was like, okay. He's like, learn to find the balance. I think you also know the amount of things that go behind just sending out even one plate of food is insane. This industry is so labor intensive. People don't realize the costs that go into opening a restaurant or opening a cafe, even however small or big it may be, it's the same amount of time and effort that sort of goes into it. For us running a business in Mangalore, I think manpower used to be one of our biggest challenges back then. Slowly that is changing. We are building on a team that is very excited to work, a young team of budding cooks, and even our service team is really cool and who are genuinely passionate about what we do and to be in the industry. But I think outside of the kitchen, it's keeping the cost in check. Every month you will see Varun and I having a fight saying, why is the cost going up? And I was like, quality. And he's like, Shriya. It's like, then you price it also correctly.
I'm on Varun's side on this.
I was like, Varun, Mangalore, can't. He's like, so you want to give top quality, but you don't want to price it high. It's like, what in this? Can you just find
the perennial battle? Yeah. You're also a culinary instructor and a mentor to a lot of young chefs. Tell us about that.
I love teaching. I think from a very young age, I've always just loved teaching. I used to take tuitions when I was in college to earn extra pocket money, but also when it comes...
Oh, as in like give tuitions.
Yeah. To earn like extra pocket money. And I remember I was working at the bakery of one of my friends' hotels, and there were 3 chefs I was working under. Out of the 3, there were 2 chefs who would teach me recipes and teach me techniques, but they would always be like, किसी से share मत करना, ये तुम लिख लो लेकिन don't share it with anybody. These are like my secrets. I'm just imparting it and sharing it with you. There was this other chef Jalal. I still remember. I don't think he remembers me anymore because I was there for such a short while. And he was teaching me how to make a chocolate fudge, which was, I think, one of his most prized recipes or something like that. And he didn't tell me he don't show it. I asked him, chef, can you share the recipe? He shared it. He's like, write it down. And I was very curious. I was like, so after 2 days, I went to him and like, chef, aapne meko bola nahi. Don't worry, I won't share it with anybody. And he just looked at me and he's like, did I tell you not to? I said, but all the others, they tell. So he's like, understand one thing in life, regardless of whether you continue here or not. If a chef has to get better than you, they'll work anywhere and get better than you. So even if you have to get better than me, you will work in, you'll find your way to be better than me. But I would at least appreciate the fact that I was part of that journey and you'll remember me for it. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, that is a really big lesson. So after that day, I have never sort of been tired ki, no, I'm not going to share. I was like, yaar, unless you don't understand the technique or you've not spent the number of hours that I have spent in getting this right, what will you do with a recipe at the end of the day? And even if you're better at it, later on when you become a big chef, you'll at least thank me. Or at least in your head, you'll be like, oh, thankfully she helped me out when I needed it. So I was like, I would rather be that kind of a chef than the chef who sort of, goes back and...
I feel like, again, as someone who eats a lot, I don't think any one person is the last word on a dish. You'll be really good at it, but there'll be someone who does their version of it or their take of it. And that's the whole point, right? Everything evolves as you cook it. And so learning from different people is just part of the process. It's not something that, that's the ultimate recipe and you can't build on it.
Oh yeah, that is completely true. And in fact, if you ask any chef, they'll tell you that there's no such thing as an authentic recipe. And I think India is one of like the biggest examples for it, because an aloo gobi or an aloo matar made in my house will be very different from yours, but both of us can continue fighting that mine is the best or yours is the best, So it's the same with everything else, because food keeps evolving, and that's the main reason why I keep telling people is the ingredients that we need to concentrate on, because food evolution will continue happening according to whatever is available. But once the indigenous ingredients die off, then it'll be a little bit of a problem to call it traditional, Indian food or traditional regional food and stuff like that. So there's traditional food and there's authentic food. There's nothing known as like authentic food is the scam. Like it can be traditionally cooked, but the way you make it, or your mom makes it or my mom makes it, will be like poles apart.
Absolutely. What would you sort of advise someone who's looking to get into the industry, whether as a chef or a restaurateur, or, what would your 2 cents be?
Don't expect any personal life. If you want a work-life balance, find another job to do. I think, but yeah, I think when you're starting off, at least, you really need to give it your all. And it is a very demanding industry. And I think we can work towards making our work environment less toxic and stuff like that. But you can't take away from the fact that the hours are going to be around. There's no way that this industry will ever become a 9 to 5, 8-hour shift wala industry. Sorry. But yes, while you're working here, you can make it better for yourselves. If you are an employer, you can make it better for your employees and, stuff like that.
Say things like that out loud in front of my team.
So those things can change, but timing's worse.
Yeah, no, and I can completely back you up on that. And no matter how many years you spend in the business, I think it doesn't really change. It's always gonna consume you in a way. So
yeah, I completely agree. I mean, we are here now. But we are constantly on call with the team back in Mangalore, checking if everything is fine. If because I think the minute you step out, something goes wrong. And there is some fire somewhere that you need to sort of douse and sort of figure out. And
it's Murphy's law that just has attached itself to this business.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, so we always end the episode with 2 truths and a lie, and that basically is that you have to say 3 statements about yourself, and I will try and guess the lie. So go for it. Yeah, I'm going to watch your face to see when you start giggling. Yeah.
First one. I wanted to be a fashion designer when I was in school. I played hockey in school. I have made my class teacher cancel a page-long remark given to me for eating another student's tiffin.
Okay, that's definitely not a lie because I can see you doing that. So the last one is probably true because I can fully see you doing that. Fashion designer, I've seen your Instagram posts and you do dress up quite a bit. I'm going to go with the hockey.
Are you sure?
What is it not? What is it? What is that? Who wants to be a million record? But
sure, lock your
yeah, you can lock my answer.
You're right.
Yes. See, I know you so well. Damn, there's some Instagram. I need to show a really tough one. Okay, we'll do one more. Since you've come prepared.
So I have dogs. Okay, one of the dogs is called Bob. So Bob was actually supposed to be called Kachra because we found him in the dumpster. That's one. Second one is that Bob only eats butter croissants and no other bread. The third one is that I can eat dessert any time of the day or night.
Okay, the third one for sure is true.
Yeah.
The Kachra one's really mean, Shriya. It's like rude. But because you have a bakery, I think the butter croissant thing might be true. But if it's your dog, it'll eat anything. Tough one, man. I'm gonna go with Kachra because that's mean.
That's what Varun also thought. That's why I couldn't name him Kachra.
Yeah. So you were going to name him Kachra. Okay, so then which one's not true? The butter croissant.
Then I can eat dessert any time of the day. I'm not a dessert person at all.
Oh my God. Really?
I can eat chips any time of the day or night. I can't eat dessert.
You can do cocktails anytime. Yeah, you're right. But
so Bob literally eats only croissants and only butter croissants. He will not enjoy any other bread.
See?
Yeah, my team tells that you've got a very fancy dog. And he's my indie. Yeah, the boxer eats anything. He'll eat Kachra. But yeah, I really wanted to call Bob Kachra and Varun really gave me the dirtiest look.
You need the Varun in your life.
Yeah. Like, what's wrong with you? Why would you want to remind it? I was like, but in Lagan there was a Kachra, so why can't we have a Kachra in our life?
Can do it.
No, I am. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, Shriya Shetty, thank you so much for being on this. This was really fun, and we can't wait to have you back in Mac Street Kitchen.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a lot of fun.